and achieve the goals you want to achieve. And when we're talking about different expectations, obviously within reason, you have to adapt to the new parameters. It is what it is.
Right. Yes.
But you can still have your schedule. Like, hey, I'm not working on my laptop past 5:00. Or like, I have some clients who only want to do over the phone because they're on their laptop all day. And so doing a video session with me is just another hour of their time spent on their laptop that they don't want. And I'm okay with that. It's adapting, you know?
Okay. Good. Okay. So I guess perhaps being a little bit more forceful is not the word I want to use, but a little bit more upfront with the people who are telling you that, hey, you're working from home now, and these are our expectations. Maybe a little bit of, I don't want to say pushback, but making sure you kind of maintain, your boundaries between the two is definitely warranted.
Well, and I would even go so far as to say, ask what those expectations are. There's nothing wrong with saying to your, and this may be another episode with another guest, but really talking about what type of boss do you have, right? Because obviously it's important because
yes.
Different bosses do different things. My boss gives me a lot of autonomy, which is great and not so great.
Love
because I can do it whatever I want. But then, like I said previously, I have to then schedule myself. Now, I got in a groove of doing that, but it was harder for me to kind of finagle, well, I'm so used to a schedule and now I don't have one and I have to make my own. But asking your boss or whoever you report to or whatever the company is, what do those parameters look like? Do I have to do 8 hours of my choice? Do I have to do 9 to 5? Do I have to? And I wouldn't necessarily recommend saying, do I have to? But like, what does my day have to look like? Or what things are required for me to fit the bill for what they're looking for? Because if they are saying you have to be on for 8 hours, maybe you work better in the evening. Maybe you work better really early in the morning, right? If you have the ability to be flexible in that way, there's nothing wrong with asking questions about what does that need to look like so that you can create the best schedule for you. That's self-care in and of itself.
Okay. See, thank you for tying that right back together. Because I was like, ooh, and this is how we can do that. But so that was actually a question I really wanted to get out there. And I think that there is, as you said, maybe there's an episode tied to that with some folks who have more insight than I do of that on, here's how you deal with a micromanager and a macro manager when it comes to working from home. I think I'll thank you kindly for the idea and good things like that, which is awesome. But I think that it's timely because we're still in this time where a lot of people are struggling, and they may be struggling with the job that they already have, and they're listening to this show because they want to find something better. They want to find something a little bit more flexible, and freedom is always a good thing. So good deal. Thank you for indulging my tangent there, Christine. That was fantastic. All right. We've got a couple more questions here before we kind of tie things out here. And I wanted to bring the kind of attitude back up. We've been spending a lot of time talking about, people who are having a hard time or maybe need to, learn to self-care and things like that. Would you be kind enough to share your biggest success story and what you can tell us about how they got their self-care game kind of back on track?
Oof. Yeah. So to be very honest with you, I feel like the pandemic has been great for therapy.
Really?
Yeah. And it's so weird to say that, but although there are lots of things that we're working on, my clients and I think the fact that they're able to be in their safe space when they do therapy with me, like they're at home, they're in their place that they feel safest. Right.
Right.
And so in a lot of ways, most of my clients have made huge strides.
That's awesome.
Just because they don't have to kind of warm up to the space that I've brought them into. They are in their own space. And so we don't even have to have that conversation. We don't even have to do ice breaking of any kind. We're just there. And so it elevates the the therapeutic relationship, in my opinion. So I think that is great that you
Definitely.
know, that we're allowed to be in our safe places, whether that be working, whether that be therapy. I think it's just kind of nice to have the ability to be in a place that of your own design when you're going through some difficult stuff. So as far as success story, I know one person in particular, trying to be as vague, but
yeah. And again, I would never ever want you to give names or anything like that.
Yeah, there was one person that I saw, which the situation just kind of was like, so obviously I work in trauma, so it was trauma related.
Yes.
And they were very big into art, and through the kind of lack of self-care, the lack of figuring out what they needed, the art kind of went to the wayside.
Okay.
And it was really disheartening because I knew that at some point it was a very big deal to them, and it was more than a hobby, it was a passion. And for that passion to be like totally snuffed out by trauma, by like economic circumstances, all these things, mental health concerns, all of this stuff, all stemming from childhood, some adulthood. After we worked together for, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 months, out of nowhere, they sent me an email with a painting that they had done.
That's so cool.
And it was so fantastic because they had mentioned to me that they put the word future underneath the TV, just wrote it on a piece of paper, and put it underneath their TV so that every time they sat down to watch TV, they saw future, like, I have a future. Future is possible.
That's really deep. And
yeah.
really a great tactic too. And I can see it working kind of from the other side of the, I have a future, or this is my future if I don't get to doing what I need to be doing.
Right.
Like it's positive and, foreboding at the same time. So that's,
right. Yeah. And so for this particular client, it was so wonderful to actually start. Yes, we definitely went to those places, through those dark things, talked about them, worked tirelessly through them. But the fact that there was another side to come to was a really great reminder. Like, I really need to remember that this is still possible, that this is happening. And then out of nowhere to spontaneously get that email.
Oh, that's just so neat.
They felt compelled to do art, to create something. That tells me that healing is happening, that movement is happening, that progress is happening. And so that is something that I think when we're talking in terms of self-care, it was, what do I need? And what I need is to work through these things. And once I realized the things I needed to work through, then the blocks are no longer there, and I can create. I can be.
Okay. Wow. That again, very just uplifting. And that's why you do what you do, obviously. Neat.
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think I kind of turned the corner on the show here. So, which is great. Again, It is tough to talk about things that are down like this, like people needing jobs, people facing financial shortages. So again, this has just been a wonderful thing, Christine. We're going to close out with a couple quick things here.
Yeah.
So what, in your mind, what does the average listener, or maybe even myself, not know about self-care?
So it is difficult. It takes work. I don't want to say like honest with yourself again, but like overcoming all the things that losing your job will bring to you, because they will show up. The guilt, the shame, the feelings of inadequacy, they will show up. Be real with yourself in the fact that everyone else goes through it. It is not just you. I think that is a huge thing that people don't take into consideration. Like, oh, I lost my job. That's true. And I'm not discrediting the fact that that's very traumatic for you.
Right.
But other people lose their jobs. You are not alone in this. You don't have to be alone in this. Do not isolate yourself. Reach out in whatever way. And I spoke a little bit about primary and secondary emotions, but if you're getting angry a lot or you're feeling all these things, what is the root cause of that? So, like I said, of anger being a secondary emotion, primary emotion, fear, shame, guilt, disappointment, all these things. Get in touch with what those are. That's the really tough part about self-care, is figuring out what's the root cause, what's the actual need based on that root cause, and how do I get that need met?
Huh. Okay, that was, again, I love talking to you about this because, like, I learned. That's the best part. Like, huh. Now, when I was, when I had lost my job a little while ago, how did I feel? I was like, maybe shame was the real one, things like that. And I think that for a lot of people really is perhaps it. Again, this silly society we live in really places a lot of value on being productive and look at me and I have this car and this house and this hat and whatever it might be. Okay. Mm-hmm. Good deal. Alrighty. Last one from me, then I get to turn it over to you for just a little bit. Okay. So, Christine, what about overall mental health? What's the biggest misconception out there that people have when it comes to feeling fulfilled in their daily life or job? What's the biggest misconception?
Oh, that money is going to provide all your happiness.
The old adage. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think for 1 second, and I'm including myself in this, mm-hmm. because we've all been there. Some of us might still be there. I might go back to that place. Who knows? If you think for 1 second that money is going to bring you everything, or that perfect job is going to bring you everything, or, once I make X number of dollars, then I'm going to be happy. That is a lie that you are telling yourself. It's just true. Like, you're just lying to yourself. And I'm not saying that in a punitive way. I'm saying don't let that be the reason you're doing certain things, because I remember, like, my dad said something to me, and this is years ago, but my dad had said something to me about, how, he had seen the CEO of the company that he was working for on the beach, like when he and my mom had gone on vacation to like Mexico or something. And he had seen his CEO of the same company on the same beach. Huh. He was on his cell phone. Like, his family was off doing whatever, but he was, like, working.
Oh, he was chained to it.
And so, okay, that's great. So you have all this money and this prestige and this title and all this other stuff, right? That's great. But you can't even enjoy the beach.
Oh.
So are you really happy, or are you, so again, going back to the same thing that we've been talking about, but what do you actually want? Like, I mean, stability is one thing. Prestige is another, right? And so what do you actually want? Do you want stability so that you can enjoy the beach? Or do you want the name, but you're never going to get to enjoy the beach?
I see. That's funny, because I took a personality test once that had a couple of those. I think it's called Fascination Advantage. I don't know if you've heard of that one. And they put my two things, at least at the time I took it, which was about, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago now. They were power and prestige, because I wanted to, climb the corporate ladder and things like that. And I think that's changed a little bit, but at the same time, I think you brought up a great point of, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Being the king, if you will, can kind of suck.
Right. Because then you have to make all the decisions and everybody relies on you, and that's just as overwhelming as no one relying on you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Your turn, my friend. What did I miss? What did I miss about self-care?
So the ever-changing need has to be recognized. So you may start your job hunt wanting X, Y, or Z, and that may be true to self. However, after you kind of look at things a little bit, and maybe you get a job that you don't really like, but maybe it affords you different things, So say you don't